How you doing, baby? Just doing. You want
Thank you all. We are ready to begin.
There we go. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you guys so much for being here. You know, anytime you do an event, for me anyway, the fear is always, what if nobody shows up? So you guys are here, and I'm so super excited to see you. I see board member Eames there. Hey, Miss Eames, thank you for being here. Representative Hughes, thank you so much for being here. And thank you, Miss Stephanie, for hosting us. Yes, give her a round of applause for her hospitality. That's one of the things I love about our community here is just the willingness to step up and to help. And that's what this meeting is really all about, is we all have to step up and we all have to help. So I want to start off by saying, y'all, I know we got issues, okay? I am not shying away from the issues, okay? And to be clear, my job, my goal, my mission is to address each and every one of those issues and to work together to resolve them, okay? And the key there is that we're going to have to work together. And we didn't get here overnight, and it's not going to be resolved overnight, right? And that's regardless of what the it is, okay? So, you know, it's going to take us really putting our heads together and being thoughtful and intentional and keeping students first. You know, if you have read anything on my 100-day plan, you know, my core values are equity, excellence, and joy. But what trumps all of that is students first. Because I do intend to make sure that as we're making decisions, we're considering what's in the best interest of our babies, what's in the best interest of our scholars. And we're also lifting their voices up. So it's not something that we're doing to them, it's something that we're doing with them and for them. And I can't wait to start engaging with our scholars because that's definitely a highlight for me. The last week or so has been just awesome because the babies are back in school and I get to go to my happy place to see, I saw you, to see our scholars back in school. So I'm going to walk through the PowerPoint and just to give you an idea of what's in the 100-day plan. And then we're going to talk about some of the key questions that I kind of identified based on the conversations that I've had as well as data that I've reviewed. And then I want to hear from you because one of the questions that I also have is what am I not asking that I might need to ask, okay? So this is just a 100-day entry plan, and it's literally just that, y'all. It's for 100 days. So this is like 3 months of my entry, just really introducing me and giving me an opportunity to share with you some of the things that I've highlighted as specific needs. So I come to you with a commitment to equity, excellence, and joy, and we'll talk about each of those as we move forward. And so let's just talk about this for just a bit. So with equity, we are intentionally eliminating barriers and providing access. That's what equity means to me. Now, at some point, I want us to work together to define equity for our entire community. We do have an executive director for equity and strategic planning. I thought I saw Sam a moment ago. Yeah, there she is back there, Sam Keyshawn. Y'all may know her. And so she's going to be leading this work as we identify barriers and look at how we can do a better job of providing access. Through excellence, we have high expectations for ourselves and expect to be held accountable. And that's part of what this is. This is an accountability measure to make sure that we are hearing you and working to meet your needs. And with joy, we are enthusiastic about our work and celebrate our successes as we go along. All right, so one of the things I wanted to really be intentional about is making sure that board priorities were identified. And this is just a snapshot. Civically engaged scholars, strengthening operational infrastructure, scholar partnerships, and collaborative communities. And you'll see bits and pieces of each of those woven into the 100-day plan. One of the things that we're talking about today is our key questions. And I'm not going to read them all right now because as we get to the end of this presentation, that's what I'm here for, is to ask those key questions and to just have some dialogue with you all. So these are in the hard copy if you want to take a look at those. But we're not going to shy away from the tough questions. And That third question up there, how can we make our enrollment system more effective, is one of the ones I'm most interested in hearing more about and sharing some of my own insights that have been shared with me. Just some more key questions, and then these are the goals. Now, it's a number of goals that are here. I met with members of my cabinet today so we can start really looking at how we divide these goals. How do we ensure that we're successful? Some of it is not too difficult. Visiting all of the schools within the first 100 days. I'm looking forward to doing that. Develop trusting, productive, and collaborative relationships with our entire community. Also engage our families and community by hosting meetings like this. And this is our ABC tour. This is the first one. And ABC is Dr. Avis Beignets Conversations. And again, appreciative of you guys being here. One of the outcomes of meeting here is going to be developing solution circles. My goal is to share insights and to hear from you during these sessions. But then as we do that, we know we're going to identify some key areas that we have to work on, right? And the solution circles will come into play for that. We want to establish NOLA CARES. CARES is our community access to resources and equity. If you've heard me speak before, you may have heard me prioritize mental health and wellness. Y'all, this is big for me. And I don't know how many of you know my story, and in a different setting, I'll be more than happy to share my story of resilience and healing, and what it means to be an overcomer, and what it means to face trials and tribulations and trauma. And we want to make sure that we're being intentional about how we address all of that under the big umbrella of NOLA CARES. I want to also make sure we conduct a deep data dive to determine achievement and opportunity gaps, especially those that disproportionately impact children of color. And we want to seek root causes. You know, I'm a big believer in asking why, and then why again, and then why again, until we really dig deep into understanding how we got here. I want to work collaboratively with internal and external stakeholders to make sure we address attendance and truancy. And you all know that this has been an ongoing discussion for some time now. And I want to make sure we have the right data points to be able to really hone in on what our specific challenges are with truancy and what are some of the solutions that we can engage with our entire community as we address this. We want to develop a process for charter extension and renewal, and this has actually already happened in terms of making sure we identify some of the obstacles and challenges that COVID-19 created. Develop an accountability formula specific to NOLA PS that emphasizes academic growth, learning environment, social and emotional learning, culture, and climate. And this is really all about, when we think about school quality, thinking about it in a broader sense, beyond just a school letter grade. Because we've got schools that may not have the highest letter grade, but have some super engaging activities for our scholars, and some teachers who are knocking it out the park. And so we just want to be more comprehensive in how we view school quality. We want to develop a policy for facilities dispensation that provides for community benefit and use. And this is partnering with Norris, partnering with the public library and other entities to make sure that our scholars have safe spaces to engage in after-school activities and recreational activities. We want to develop and implement a plan to support a millage renewal that maintains and expands funding for the preservation of our school facilities. You know, we've got school facilities that are crumbling. We need to make sure that we're making the necessary repairs. And then, of course, presenting an annual budget to the board and being transparent about that budget as we move forward. As we talk about equity, again, it's all about being intentional as we eliminate opportunity gaps and barriers. And identifying what those gaps are and what those barriers are is really important to do on the front end of this work. And that's one of the things that I hope to gain from our ABC tour meetings. And so as we think about equity, these are some of the ways that I will work over the next couple of months and long term to make sure that we're looking at things through an equity lens. Well, the ABC tours, and I mentioned before, we have an executive director of equity and strategic planning. We're going to look at our policies through an equity lens. You know, one thing that I've discovered as an educator is that sometimes when we talk about barriers, we create the barriers. Our policies create the barriers. Our procedures fees and all sorts of guidelines where we're making our families jump through too many hoops. Sometimes those are the barriers. And so that's why it's really important that we use an equity lens in terms of checking ourselves with the work that we're doing. Implementing NOLA cares, and so that we're having, again, a space to really look at mental health and wellness, and to look at an equity policy, and making sure we're focusing on anti-racist policies and practices. Interrogating multiple data points. I mentioned before that as we think about school attendance and truancy, we need multiple data points to know whether we're knocking it out the park and doing things well, or if we've got some gaps in terms of what our roles and responsibilities should be. Determine how to better support our single-site schools as well as our schools that are led by people of color. And if you read data on charter schools, you will see some trends that are not always positive in terms of the single-site versus the ones that are networks, and the charters that are led by people of color versus those that are not. And so I really want to make sure that we're intentional about supporting all of our schools through that lens. Excellence, and again, high expectations, and that accountability piece is key here. And so in looking at this over the course of time, reevaluating our charter school accountability framework. And I mentioned before, looking at school quality beyond just a letter grade. And part of that is going to be lifting up our scholars' voices and hearing from them, hearing about their school experience. What is the experience like for our scholars? What is the learning environment like for our scholars? And we also want to make sure as we're doing that, we establish district-wide opportunities to collaborate. And this is including our teachers and our school leaders, that we're learning together, we're growing together in excellence. And convening the school leaders and teachers and families in advisories so that we have two-way communication. As I was visiting schools this week and last week and talking to some scholars, I did ask a few already, would you serve on my advisory team? Because they have ideas and thoughts that matter. And, I was talking to a young man yesterday, and I probably shouldn't bring this up, but how many of you guys have high school students? Yonder? Is that the cell phone bag yonder? Y'all familiar? And so this young man, now let me be clear, we know that scholars are glued to their phones, right? I mean, heck, most of us are glued to our phones too, right? But he had some really unique insights on this yonder piece and, what he thought about it. And he said, this is going to be a problem. And he told me some of the reasons he thought it would be a problem. I mean, he made a lot of sense to me. And I said, you know what, would you serve on my advisory council? Because I need to hear more about this and what your other ideas are that we could do better, right? And so I'm looking forward to engaging with him and some other scholars. And then establishing a transition team. And this is going to be to review what happens during this space, and then also to turn that around into a new strategic plan, reimagining our current strategic plan. And then also with excellence, we're going to look at how we synthesize the information that we gain here. We're going to review our charter school autonomy to determine what is most effective and what structures need a more systemic approach. As I talk to families, I'm hearing things that our schools may need some support on. We're going to consider national models to improve organizational quality. I'm a big believer in data, y'all. One of my Avisisms is, in God we trust, all others bring data. All right? And it's because, we need to make sure we're basing our decisions on fact and not just, our beliefs and our opinions. So we're definitely going to be looking at ways to do that in a measurable way and in a way that is already known to be used nationally to improve outcomes. And then joy. This is my personal favorite core value. And I'm just a firm believer that this is a labor of love for me, y'all. Even as we struggle and as we look at the challenges that we have to face, I do it knowing that it's going to impact the babies and knowing that in the long run, we're going to be better for it. And so we're going to make sure that we're establishing and enhancing district recognitions because we want to celebrate the excellence as we go along. We're going to conduct culture and climate surveys or use some of our existing data to determine how we can improve working conditions for our teachers and staff and enhance the experience that our scholars have at school. We're going to partner with Norris, the public library, and other entities so that we can ensure that our scholars have opportunities for recreation, to get out and play and to enjoy nature a bit. We're also going to provide routine and comprehensive feedback and support to school leaders and district leaders. You know, that communication piece is so extremely important as we support our teachers and leaders. Share my adventures in running. Any other runners out there? No? Y'all eat beignets and you don't run? Seriously? Okay, thank you. Well, I'm a runner, and you know, part of my joy does come from running. You know, sometimes I'm with friends and we might be vacationing or something, and they're like, let's do such and such, and let's go out and do this. I'm like, no, I need to run. No, come on. Like, trust me, you're gonna want me to run. But I look forward to sharing that and encouraging other people. Just get out and enjoy nature. Move. It doesn't have to be running. I look forward to engaging our scholars during lunch and learn sessions, and this is to better understand what their world is like. You know, I ask 2 questions. What are your hopes and dreams, and what do you need from your school? And I'm very, very intentional about asking those questions and making sure that I share with our school leaders the responses, and then working to ensure that we're closing any gaps that we can along that line. And so as we look at moving forward, NOLA Cares is something that you'll hear a lot about in the coming months. This is a really historic opportunity for our city to partner. I have met with Sheriff Hudson and Mayor Cantrell, and we are committed to using our collective positions and power to make sure that we really put a focus on mental health and wellness for our entire community. And this will prioritize wellness, mental health, self-care, as well as trauma-informed practices. So more information soon on what we'll call our Care Fair. It's going to be exciting. And so I need to hear your voice, so I'm going to definitely invite you to use our QR code for any, if you want to engage by, and it's on our Padlet, right? If they use the QR code, you can definitely engage that way. But what I want to do now, I know some people have written down questions. I'm going to alternate. I'm going to ask a question and talk about it, and then I'm going to take one of your questions as well, because I do want to hear from you. If you know you want to ask your question here tonight, go ahead and let Courtney and Christopher know that you want to do that. But I'm going to start off. Now I've got several key questions here, and I'm not going to ask all of them. I'm going to start off with the one that I think is one of the an urgent one. And it's the one I mentioned earlier. How can we make our enrollment system more effective? Now, I'm going to be honest with y'all, okay? It's an algorithm, right? And so when I first heard that it doesn't work, I was like, well, it's an algorithm. You know, it's just like my scale. If I step on it, and if it doesn't say what I want it to say, it doesn't work, right? And so I was really oversimplifying it, because since that time, I have talked to so many families who are struggling with one app, Enroll, NOLA, NCAP, whatever we're calling it today, and struggling with it because of the communication sometimes, and sometimes it's because of just some confusing information that they're getting. And so I don't want to pigeonhole it to say that everyone has the same challenge with it, because I don't think that's the case. But what I do know for sure is that we've got to find a more family-friendly way for our enrollment to work. And in order to do that, though, I do need to know more about some of the specific challenges, some of the specific problems with it. And I've had some people give me examples and bring me the paperwork to show me, you know, the email chain and what they clicked on and what their options were and so forth. So I've started doing that by reviewing actual documentation from people who either enrolled in the spring or recently enrolled or attempted to enroll. And so I'm really interested to hear some specifics around that. So if you've got some enrollment stories, are you going to say something, Courtney? Oh yeah, I'll be ready in just a second. Yeah, so if you've got some enrollment stories, I really would appreciate it if you would put it on your comment card or the Padlet, And especially if you're willing to sit down with me and tell me more, because sometimes it's not enough for me to just know that it's not working. In order for us to fix it and to address it, we really have to know some specifics. So if you're willing to give me more information, that would be extremely helpful. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Dr. Avis, I have a parent. My name is Melissa Francis, and I represent parents. And I'm a parent union organizer, right? So I had a parent who had a child enrolled in the school, and you know every year the child needs to be re-enrolled, right? And that didn't happen at a timely manner because they had emergency in the family. Well, her mother passed away, so she didn't have the opportunity to do it in a timely manner. So she was trying to get help with exceptional children's services. We went on last week and the office was closed. But we emailed someone and they came right away to assist us, but that was a barrier.
Yeah, and so I'm glad you brought that up because you know, I do know that sometimes the problems get resolved, but it does create a barrier. And a couple of the instances that have been shared with me, it was really stressful. You know, especially if you're a new mother or.
They were out on Zoom, so my question is, how can we as parents know when people are supposed to be out on Zoom calls or any other professional development?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you mean. So in other words, what are the office hours? When and how should you expect someone to respond to you? Yeah, so we'll make sure that, and we're writing all of this down because we want to make sure that we are getting answers. And again, I may not be able to solve them all tonight. I won't be able to solve them all tonight. Let me just say that. But I definitely need to hear things like that and some of the specifics. So I appreciate you sharing that. And if you want to reach out and have a meeting and get some more details, I would love that.
I will.
Okay, we have a question?
I
Yes.
just want to respond about the enrollment issue.
Yes, ma'am.
So my name is Christy Rosales. I'm the director of the Pueblo NOLA, and I work with a lot of EL parents, English language learners family, and a lot of our population of families, especially Spanish-speaking families, are either construction worker or working in the hotel industry. There are not 9-to-5 jobs. They usually get off work after a certain hour where the 1F center is open. So they're coming into my office until 8 and 9 o'clock at night to try to figure out how to get their kids in school. We're talking about using a system where they have never been trained. I have never been given a car where someone haven't taught me how to drive. So we're just assuming these parents know how to operate a computer. We're assuming that these parents know how to read Spanish. We're assuming that just because it's translated, just like tonight, you have an interpreter. But if you don't give space for it to be interpreted, you don't have interpretation. So it's a lot of things that we need to have a different lens on when we look at. You talked about a lot about equity. Equity really looks different depending on what lens you're looking at it. And so I really want to be able to make sure that when we're looking at it, I'm working every single day. I'm not charging families to enroll their kids in school, but I make myself available for my community. I have families coming from the West Bank all the way to New Orleans East. And as far as Houma, you know, I know, but there's rural areas in the city, right? I mean, in the state. And so it's all over. It's all of these school districts that everyone have their own system. Some of the schools that are near their home, others they can go anywhere. We're talking about families that are scared, even to give out just their address. Right. We're talking about families that are scared because either they've been targeted or they've been threatened by schools. So there's a lot of things that are happening that I would love to sit with you, but also tell you that I know everybody wants to work at 9 to 5 or until 4 o'clock, but we need to be able to, if y'all don't want to do it, then partner with us, the nonprofit organization that's willing to do it, but make sure that whatever budget y'all have, y'all also compensating our organizations.
Thank you for that. I really appreciate that. And seriously, email me so we can get together and talk in more detail about it, because I do recognize that, and that's one of the examples of some barriers that we know exist that we need to absolutely address. So, and I had a great conversation with her earlier about some transportation issues and so forth that are because of language barriers too. So we definitely want to address those. Yeah, so I'm going to ask another question from my list, and I'm going to give you some insights about it and then hear from you as well. So I want to go with what are the biggest challenges facing our NOLA PS scholars? What are the biggest challenges facing our NOLA PS scholars? I wonder if there's a scholar here who I could ask. I wonder. Come on, you don't have to be shy. Come on, you're amongst friends. Aren't you guys friends? Yes. Thank you. Okay, so I already know your favorite subject is ELA, and you were. So this is a scholar who was actually excited about going back to school, which warms my heart, y'all, because I saw some babies' lips all poked out. So can you just tell me one thing that you think would be considered a challenge for you and some of your peers, things that maybe your school can do, or that I as superintendent might be able to do that would help you? What are you thinking? More homework? Oh, okay, yeah. That's not what you said? Oh, my bad, I'm sorry. You know, y'all, I got this thing, sometimes I be hearing stuff. Huh?
So I want to change the lunch because it be nasty.
So what would you want? Is it the food type? Is it the seasoning? Is it the temperature? Is it the variety?
Oh yeah, it's all of it. It's all of guys.
And it's not culturally relevant.
It's not.
It is
I
not.
agree. It's not.
Tell us your name.
Oh, my name is Jace Cooper. Kid East.
Thank you, Jace. Give him a hand. Okay, so that's real. Okay. One of the things that I did in my previous district, we had the same complaint. And let's be clear, most kids do complain about lunch, but sometimes it's like for real legitimate, right? And there are things that we can do to make it better. So one thing that we did, we set up some surveys, we did some secret tasters, we did a menu makeover, and we did some challenges, some cook-offs, where we made it a contest between the various cafeterias to see who could make the best whatever the recipe was. So we will definitely look into lunch because it matters, you know. None of us would want to eat food that we don't want to eat, right? So it matters. So thank you for that, Jace.
Hi, I wanted to answer the question about the scholars question.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm a parent of 2 children, one in middle school, one in high school, but I've also been an educational advocate for the last 20 years. And one of the things that really needs to happen, especially post-Katrina, is that the boards and CEOs need to be trained on federal and state law. I have said many times, as we envision excellence, as we envision these things, 2 things need to happen. One, we need to study the past, because a lot of the innovation we're having now, it was much more, like we had innovation that we don't have now currently. Our children don't have PE, our children don't have recreation, our children don't have electrician, all of the things that we had before, we have none of it. But the biggest problem is that our schools are not law-abiding. I always say if we could get to law-abiding and get best practices, what our children need in early childhood, just early childhood basics and adolescent basics. And the fact that we know we have a traumatized population, all of our schools should have some type of therapeutic component. Because we already know, according to OPSB, before you got here, said that 60% of our children have PTSD. Well, 60% of our children have PTSD on record. We know these are only the children who've been evaluated. Every school should have not only guidance counselors, but real counselors and therapists. But every school should also have PE, recreation, arts, music. It shouldn't be that I have to try to get into Lusher or Benjamin Franklin to get what other children get in any other state as basics. And so, like, we need our culture back in our school. We need our children to be treated as whole children, because that is not happening at the majority of our schools. And so that's just what I want to say.
Did you write your some of that down? I definitely want to, and we're capturing it, but it's fine if you did. We're capturing it. Okay, thank you for that, and I do want to respond to that, because I definitely agree, obviously, about following the law. I mean, that's a must, and I'll certainly look into that. But when we think about educating the whole child, that's so important, y'all. And a lot of what I talked about with NOLA Cares is about that. It's about the whole child, the whole educator, the whole person. Because we cannot expect our babies to excel if they're not well. You know, the same way we can't expect teachers and leaders and staff and anyone else to function if they're not well. So I really appreciate her lifting that up. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, my name is Alexia Short. I don't have any kids, all my kids are grown, but I have grandkids. I have ran into young people who have kids in these public school systems.
Yes, ma'am.
One guy told me the other night, it's great how the teachers come dressed. He said it's a distraction to these young boys in class. So you all don't have a dress code. I guess I went to Catholic school all my life, so there was dress codes in Catholic school.
Right.
So is there not a dress code for the teachers?
There
Because
is. There are dress expectations.
But
Yes.
they're not
absolutely.
for children.
Gotcha.
And it was a father telling me this. He said he was
Okay.
so upset. And he said the teacher, he said he could not believe that was a teacher skimpily dressed in the classroom. So when
Thank you
y'all
for
not have
that.
a dress code for the teachers in the public school system.
And if you could let Sam know some specifics on that, then I would love to look into it. Yes, ma'am.
This is related to like what scholars might need.
Mhm.
So I happen to have a daughter that's in high school, but she's neurodiverse, so she happens to be on the spectrum. But we have all manner of neurodiversities, whether it is somebody who has dyslexia, they have ADD, or on the spectrum.
Yes, ma'am.
And I think that a lot of times we always look at that population as an other versus a needed population, because maybe a lot of us who are older are a certain age, and I'm a lot older than I look, we didn't get diagnosed, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And so it's happening to our babies a little bit more, and that can be a good thing, especially with black and brown babies. But if we are letting them fall between the cracks, especially if, like my daughter, they are neurotypical presenting, you know what I'm saying? Like really smart, but she whatever. Oh, so you may not need this, that, or the other. And they may not have a parent who knows or who needs that. So I think that goes with perspective, like Christy brought up. I think that goes with law abiding, knowing what those rules are, whether it is on the bus. How long can those kids be on the bus for if they have some type of a 504 IEP? What type of classroom skills or things do they need? Because it's not going to always be academically profound. It may be a trade or a this or that. Or it may be that they can soar academically, but they've been in C's and D's because nobody realized that they learn differently. So I think that that's going to take a lot of perspective when it comes to looking at those kids who may be neurodiverse.
Yeah, I appreciate you lifting that up, because that's definitely important, that when we again talk about whole child, there's no normalizing or saying that we only serve certain students or certain situations with our scholars. It has to be whole child, all students. I definitely agree. Oh, yes, ma'am.
I have a question. It's not surrounding with scholars, but more community. I wanted to ask, well, I'm an education specialist, so student support, special education, also a coordinator at Williams one exit over. And my question is, the 100-day plan is very student and community focused, which I really appreciate. However, I do believe it's important to clearly address issues that have been expressed by disgruntled families, educators, and children formally and informally to build rapport with the community. So are you able to synthesize concerns for our schools that you may have heard, read, or received, just in the spirit of empathy? And I'm curious, just even if it's like a one-on-one, I want to know what is your perspective from what you've heard before you got here.
Yeah, so one of the things that I heard a lot was about trauma and unaddressed trauma. Since post Katrina, but even during this pandemic and Ida last year, there's been a lot of trauma in this community. So that's something that I've heard routinely. And when people are talking about it, it is scholars and families and teachers and leaders and so forth. And that's where NOLA Cares came from, is just the idea of how do we embrace wellness? How do we embrace that it's okay not to be okay, but to get to okay? What does that look like, and what data points do we need to know more about some of the specific challenges that our teachers and leaders and families face? And that's what I really hope to gain. This is meeting one, and by the end of this, I really do hope to have some more specific perspectives But to your point, I've absolutely heard about the challenges and again, really around the piece of wellness, you know. And y'all, the pandemic was hard for all of us. It was in ways that we may never be able to completely articulate or to really be able to capture in a data point. You know, and as much as I love data, I love people even more. And so it's really important to listen. And one thing that I really, really try to focus on is really listening to what people say and not worrying so much about how they say it. Because I can hear and feel the hurt, the pain. And it's real, right? And so, you know, that it's going to take time to you know, be able to identify the specific challenges and even to identify the solutions to it. But I'm all in making sure that we work together to try to do that. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. I know you're doing visiting the school before you ride the bus. Welcome to New Orleans.
Should I ride the bus? You gonna ride it with me? No, actually I would love to ride the bus. I would love to ride a school bus. Put that down. Get me on the bus, you know. No, that's a great idea though, because you know, I mean, it is important to understand student experience. And you know, and that's a major part of it. You know, what time your day starts and how your day begins and ends.
Because a lot of the students, like you have students that live in New Orleans East is getting busway across the river.
Yes,
so they start like 6 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
So if they start 6 o'clock in the morning, that's like
That's a long day.
Right, that's a long day. That's like
Yes,
12 to 14 hours. Not only that,
Exactly, baby
the
girl.
time is about to change too. So you be outside, the children be outside by themselves.
Yeah.
The mother and the dad has to work. And you don't know they coming across highways, they coming across rapists and all of this. So this is a big concern too, the buses.
Yeah.
And climate too, and that the rain, hotness,
Right.
the
What can you do about
coldness.
the rain?
No, when the children standing outside, they
I
don't
got
have
you.
their shelter.
Yes, ma'am. No, that's all those are very good points. And like I said, it really matters because when we talk about learning experience, it does start first thing in the morning when they're getting on the bus, and it does end at the end of the day. And if they're having to, like I say, be outside, especially when the time does change and it's getting dark at 4:30, 5 o'clock. And if they're on the bus or just getting home, I can certainly see where that would be a challenge.
It's no monitors on the bus.
Hi, I'm Dr. Patrice Centino, and I just wanted to share that I was excited when I saw in your 100-day plan that you were going to be addressing trauma-informed care and the whole mental illness and wellness piece. I also have a community-based organization in New Orleans, the Center for Hope Children and Family Services, where we provide that trauma-informed care. And we really missed it with Hurricane Katrina because we came back and we put the children right in school and we did not consider the fact that they were traumatized. Some children were left, families were left here stranded, and so we missed the opportunity. But then there was another opportunity to really integrate trauma-informed care, which was COVID. And I think we all faced a collective trauma going through COVID. Now, we may have experienced it differently, but we all went through the same trauma with COVID. And so I was excited to see that. But one thing that I would like to know is how are we leveraging the voice of our students and our parents when we are rolling out this whole trauma-informed care piece? And a couple of weeks ago, when you all rolled out the attendance plan, and I saw the leaders there, but I didn't see parents and I didn't see children, and I think we need to better leverage the voices because that's what we're here for. And so leveraging those voices, and so even with this trauma piece, that could be a key point into attendance, right? And especially when we have an example, when we have children that a parent may have more than one child, and the child may go to schools across town, and just say a child is sick, and the older kid has to watch that younger brother. But that's an attendance issue if they don't show up. But there's also a social and emotional issue, and a physical and environmental issue, social, that's happening with that family as well. So in moving forward, I just hope we are able to leverage and really understand the deep root of the issues that we're facing. I believe a lot of the violence and what we're experiencing today with our juveniles is linked to mental health and the lack of education of our young people.
I completely agree. And have you talked to Dr. Jordan? Have you worked with Kelly Jordan at all with the work? Because we need to get your information because I definitely would like to partner with you. Yes, ma'am.
My question is, in response to your saying some of the challenges that the scholars are facing. And with your appreciation for data, there's over 70% of the children in New Orleans that are not reading at grade level. So I think one of the hugest pieces is illiteracy in this city. So I was curious to what in your plan is your approach to address illiteracy with children and families?
Yeah. So the first thing is to get some specific data. A lot of times with school districts, we look at third grade reading as if that's the end all be all. And I get why we do that because that's such a pivotal age and a pivotal grade. But we want to look at literacy throughout all of our grade levels. Because if we stop at third grade and we have scholars in 5th grade or 8th grade who are struggling readers, then we may miss them. So one of the things that I really look forward to doing is visiting schools. And y'all, when I tell you curriculum and instruction is my jam, and I'm a former English teacher. And so I know good instruction when I see it. And so I do look forward to getting into classes and having some groups formed that will do walkthroughs together and identifying some best practices and possibly the ineffective practices that lead to some of what we are seeing. One thing that I've seen in other districts and states is the attention to early literacy skills. And oftentimes we think of early literacy as starting in pre-K. Early literacy starts at birth. Some people say it starts even before birth when you're reading to our little one while they're still inside, right? And so we're looking at ways to capitalize on our early childhood education and involving our families so that we can make sure we're supporting families at a very early stage with early literacy skills. And that's something that can help turn the tide long term. But in terms of where we are right now, it really is a matter of making sure that our teachers understand the science of reading. And there's some brain science that goes along with that. And one of the things that I found interesting as an English teacher, I taught high school and middle school, and when you have a 10th grader that's not reading on grade level or that's not a reader, a 10th grade English teacher is not a reading teacher. And so our schools need teachers trained in teaching reading. And there's a shortage of people who have that skill set to be able to do that. But that's the missing piece that I've seen, especially in upper elementary and middle and high schools. And so I'm looking forward to working with our school leaders to see what they have in place and also what the gaps are. And I know we'll find some exemplars, we'll find some places where this is being done well. And so we'll look at how can we make sure that if we find those exemplars, how can we make sure that those practices are being done in other schools as well.
And just to add to that piece, because not much of it is the elementary literacy, but we have a huge problem with social promotion in the city. So you do have the young people that are leaving high school and cannot read on grade level. We've had several instances that were all across the media where children graduated and later found out that they don't have what was needed to graduate high school.
Yes, ma'am. I appreciate that.
Okay,
we'll go here first and then I'm coming right back to you, okay?
Hello and
Hi.
welcome to New Orleans.
Thank you.
And I'm really happy to see you in New Orleans East because nobody else comes.
And this is my first spot.
Nobody else.
Y'all know I stopped here first, okay? Yes, ma'am.
I'm a grandmother. My name is Justina Williams. I'm a grandmother of 10. I have 5 over here at Schaumburg Elementary, and I see you. So obviously you've been there this week. Well, there's so much going on all over the city. But while you're speaking about literacy, I just want to say this. That there was so much that happened during Katrina that we've so many years past that now. But when the pandemic hit, there were a group of children coming in kindergarten. Those were our kindergarten babies. And when those kindergarten babies are now our 4th grade babies. And our 4th grade babies are so far behind because there is no the parents who work every day and don't have a grandmother at home or somebody, and parents who work every day, those children were literally at home, not doing anything, not at school. They were at home. So now they're our 4th grade children, and they're so far behind. Unless there's a way that you can come up with something that might help these children to come up out of that hole, that hole is only going to get deeper. And when that child in 4th grade today is in 10th grade, you will not be able to get that child in front of a group of people to stand up and read. Because when you do that, now that child with the reading problem is now a behavior problem, because that child is angry. As a parent liaison for Orleans, a former parent liaison for Orleans Parish, and I went to Mississippi and I became the entire state of Mississippi liaison for parents. I learned a lot in different areas, and I learned that when our children start off, and the lady who said about the not knowing the law, she is exactly right. We go through that so much in this city, and especially over. I don't want to point out one school because I only have. Well, yeah, especially over there, they just don't. They refuse to obey the law. It's not that they don't know the law, but I'm going to be watching this year. I'm going to be watching. I have a grandson who's autistic, and he's going now to 5th grade. I fought hard to get a one-on-one for him. And but they gave him one this year, beginning this year. I'm going to watch because things start off looking good. But believe me, you walked into a burnt kitchen. And you need lots of help.
Got lots of help, right? And I appreciate you saying that, because you're absolutely right. We got some challenges.
You're going to need more. You're going to need parents. You're going to need support. I talked to Mr. Christopher the other day about the uniforms and the things that's going on. It's so much. You walked into a lot, but I pray God's blessing upon you, and you take care of our babies.
Yes, ma'am. And I appreciate you lifting up COVID and the learning disruptions that we've had. And it's a challenge, and it's a challenge that, when I talk to my colleagues across the nation, we're all grappling, and we're collaborating and coming up with some ideas on how we can help accelerate learning and help get our babies back on track. So we're going to keep working at it. Thank you for that, though.
You don't have an opposition to men speaking this week.
No. I was gonna let him speak, but to your point, maybe I should go to her over the. No, just kidding. You want to speak after him, sir?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, sir.
My name is George Muddy. I represent neighborhood unity and social activity school. We deal with the we've dealt with in the past. And one of the problems is the lack of reading clinics. We feel that we've been clamoring for reading clinics, ever since Katrina, when they started putting in the charters and all, we get monitoring the schools and all like this. And that's something that's needed. That's something that happened. They had reading clinics when we were younger. When I was a kid, I went to school. My mother was an educator here, and they had reading clinics in all the elementary schools. And this was a very important in teaching a lot of kids from undeveloped and impoverished areas, disadvantaged areas, to get confidence in reading, because individual behavior is guided by motivation for desire for success or expectations of failure. And that starts with reading, because when kids can't read and whatnot, they lose interest in school and become, like someone said, behavior problems.
Absolutely.
And this creates, and that just feeds into what the school to prison pipeline is. Right. And this is why we have the problems that we do. We can't get our kids, and it's generational too.
It is.
Because we live in a post-literate society where it doesn't encourage reading. So, you know, what I did, I bought this information. And, you know, it has a lot of ways from the World Book Encyclopedia.
I have all these?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so thank you for lifting that up, because I believe reading is everything. You know, we start off school learning to read, and then we start reading to learn. And if we can't read, it's absolutely going to stifle our learning. And I love the idea of reading clinics, and I'd like to learn more about what you all were doing in the past, because something like that, I mean, that's something that we could do. You know, some of this stuff, y'all in my head, I'm like, oh, what are we gonna do? You know, we gotta have more questions and more answers and figure some things out and strategize and get resources. But reading clinics, that's something that we can do. And I love the idea of making sure that our scholars are being supported even after school when it comes to academics. You know, and I think that we could get some of our local business owners to support the space to do something like that. I think it could be a beautiful thing, I really do. And, you know, especially if we could get, whether they're teachers or volunteers, who understand the science of reading. Because, you know, it's not something that it's just reading to and with. You know, it's so much more to it than that. But I really appreciate that suggestion, and I like the idea. Thank you. And we had another man back there. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay.
Good evening.
Hi.
My name is Will Norris. I'm a retired educator. 10 years as a principal, 10 years as a math teacher, 10 years as a supervisor of instruction. One of the things we did at Craig School, and I found very successful, if you walk into any classroom, any school, you're going to see 90% of them are female teachers. So the men, the fellows sit back, the boys don't take it as serious. We are trying, Community Legion is trying to start a dad's club in every school out here. Not just to say we have dads there, but you get men, the kindergarten, first grade, reading. The boys, everybody say, oh, the men can read also. And this is where Craig School is inner city school. We used to have the Calipers, Mark Gloria to come in and read to our kindergarten,
awesome.
third grade, second grade, and we matched any schools in the area in math and science because we had in Garden. Jerome Smith, we had every meal we could to get into the schools. And if we do the same thing out here, you see progress. Out here, miss, I catch hell trying to get into a school.
Volunteer.
Only 3 schools out here let my group in to help their students. When you go into those schools, check and see how many principals and administration are allowed groups to come.
They don't want them to see what they do. Gotcha. I will definitely do that.
I'm telling you.
I will definitely do
And
that.
I'm around.
And can you take me off the blacklist too? Because I'm blacklisted of a lot of these.
So let me say this too about what he said about men. You know, there are a lot of education groups for black men educators, and I'll reach out to some of them to see if we have a local chapter. I know we've got 100 black men here, and I know we've got some mentoring groups, but I don't know the specifics that they're doing and which schools they're doing it. But I can certainly look into that. I definitely love the idea. Our scholars need to see themselves and the adults that are working.
And address the staff. The staffs are 54% not certified in these schools. And as a person who sat with my great niece during COVID, the teacher stood up there and said, how many of you are from Plaquemines Parish? What the heck is Plaquemines Parish? I have no idea. Then she went on with the social studies lesson, and she showed them a picture of Jackson Square, and what do you see? I see a church. This is third grade. But then she started talking about Congo Square. I'm like, did I lose something? Because Jackson Square and Congo Square are 2 different places. So you have people who are teaching children who have no idea. Obviously, they did not take a field trip around the city to know where Congo Square is to put a picture up there. So I found that disturbing. And then I'm sitting there with my niece. She gets on to math. And it's all problems coming on the computer. There was no teaching going on. I'm sitting there, I'm in my teaching mode. I'm on my computer, I'm pulling stuff up, and I am going through lessons. When I finished with her, I had a whole book to give her to do. Because she was missing something. And then the computer went out. So then we couldn't get back on to the class. So I'm saying that we have to look at these charter schools and hold them accountable for hiring people who can do a job and not hiring somebody to just fill in the spot. And you just don't, if you're certified in art, you can't teach algebra. I'm sorry, that is not happening. You might be a good math student, but no, that's not happening. And that's not fair because a child cannot get credit for Algebra 1 if you're not a certified Algebra 1 teacher. So we have to look at all of those things for our scholars to be successful. We have to start with these people who are leading these schools and go through them and find out what do they do and how are they hiring people and how are they picking people. Because it's ridiculous and it's not fair to children.
Thank you so much for that. I definitely agree. We're going to begin wrapping up in just a bit. And again, y'all, I know there's no way that I get to hear from everybody tonight, but I still want to and need to hear from you. We're doing 20 of these throughout the city, and again, this is our first one. And we'll be back here again. And we'll also, all of the other meetings will also be online. And then we'll always have the access to be able to share information or share questions or concerns throughout. And we're very serious about taking that information and making sure we synthesize it and determine how we can move forward with it. I got one more question over here. Yes, ma'am.
I want to touch on some of the medical questions. Last year, especially, we had a school calls pertaining to headaches. My grandbaby in the nurse's office, and I'm just concerned with, like, is this now the regular protocol that it's just a headache, you're going to the nurse and then sent home? And we're talking truancy and absentee, and that we can't learn if we're not at home, especially if it's younger kids home that won't be home, maybe with an older sister or brother. And it's kind of awkward to me that even going to the nurse, it's like when I get to the school, the first thing, because I'm coming from work, because I'm trying to assist, I'm like on the phone the whole time. Please get the kids down, because again, I'm easing away from work. I need to stick and move, if you want to call it that. Absolutely. So when I get to the school, none of them are in the office, because they were going to just send that one. I said there's 3 siblings there. So if one's going to come home, they all have to come home, because one, that's a younger sister that won't be able to be at home by herself. Now, I get there, they're not in the office, I start asking questions. I'm asking first, did you all take temperatures? Did you do anything but other than call me to say that you have a headache? Because if you're a nurse, I'm sorry, if you're a nurse, a medical assistant, or whatever titles that they're holding in the school's facilities, that you should be able to at least take a temperature. Because if I do have to take a child to the hospital for any reason, because if you feel it's emergency enough for that child to go home, it may be a hospital visit. We don't have any information to give to that facility if we transport from there to the hospital. So I think the regular protocol on almost any visit is to do what? Take your temperature, especially now with COVID. So it's like, can we make sure that, again, because if there's other issues outside of a headache, then I may be able to understand that you all are calling home, telling parents to leave work to come get kids and all that. It's a chain reaction when that happens.
Yes, ma'am.
Especially that the child is now leaving school, which is the most important part of this is their education.
And I definitely can understand that challenge, especially having multiple children. And so not only is the baby who is not feeling well this is school, but the other babies too.
Right,
So.
and at least a child.
Yes, ma'am.
Be able to at least locate a child
And there are some guidelines and some restrictions on doing that, but I'll definitely check to see what protocol is, because taking temperature should be something that's done if a child doesn't feel well. I definitely agree with you. Okay, last question.
I just want to make a comment, and thank you. for being here, because you've actually started this off very great. Community engagement is so important, and as this lady said, this is the first time really in our community to have the superintendent of the school system, the Norris public school system, to really engage with our community. So I think that that's the right beginning. There's a tremendous opportunity. I'm one of those that believes that the Norris public school system should be strengthened to really be the umbrella of all of the systems. And after Katrina, with the charter schools, recovery schools, and, all these different systems, it was confusing and challenging. I think that's part of the problems that we're all having right now. So I think I applaud you, because it's a difficult and challenging environment with school and education, but it's so vital. I think you've got the right idea with wanting to engage with our community, to really hear from the people, the real issues. So I see it as an opportunity. I want to thank you for that.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Yes, sir. Last question.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I'm just wondering, because I'm hearing concerns from various people, various parents, various educators, and they all have unique problems. You can agree on that, right? The thing is the resolve. Now we're trying to work on resolve for unique problems, but we are dealing with a system that has not been galvanized. We want to come together as a community to place emphasis on crime and education as a community. However, the school system is disconnected. We don't have a centralized governance. So it's kind of going to be a real daunting task for you and the school board that doesn't really have any power to address the issues that this parent may face at that school, in that charter school entity, and what that parent may face with that charter school entity. See, we can't have a resolve for the issues until we come together, not just as a community, but as a school system. We're the only community in America with a decentralized school system with multiple charter schools operating with autonomy. You cannot resolve issues disconnected, because you might solve the issue for this parent in that school because that board with that school will change their policy, but that's not going to affect the other 38 different charter entities that we have in New Orleans. I have a problem with that, because we want to come together as a community, but the system is disconnected. How will that work? I don't understand that. Can you please explain?
Yeah, I can't. I wish I had a simple answer for you, because I don't, and I'm not going to try to answer that in a way that I don't have a good answer for you right now. But what I look at is, if we look at all of the challenges and we determine what is centralized, what's not centralized, and what needs to be centralized, and really identify the priorities as we're doing that. And that's what this is all about. And this is just the start of it. And so I would like to have some more conversations around some of the specifics, because you're right. I mean, the issues that have been brought up here are varied, and they're not all coming from the same school or from the same charter. So it's going to take some time for me to be able to just synthesize that. And when I say time, y'all, let me be real clear about something. Our babies don't have time. Okay, we get one shot at this with our babies. Okay, and so please don't think that when I talk about time that I'm trying to delay anything. I just want to make sure I have a full understanding of everything from the law to your desire as a community member. You know what I mean? And together, I feel optimistic that we can do some good stuff, because y'all are beasts. I mean, for real, this community, wow. I mean, you guys you come together, you fight for what you need, and I love that. No, you do fight, trust me. Yeah, and you shouldn't have to, I agree. But I just want you to know that we're on the same side, okay? We're on the same side, and I want to be really clear about that. So we're going to wrap up. I want to thank you guys so much for being here tonight. And I invite you to come back again. This is number one. So come back again. Reach out to me. Give us your feedback and let me know your thoughts and what else we need. Thank you to our team for supporting. Thank you again, Ms. Stephanie, for hosting us. I appreciate our interpreters, our tech team, our comms team, and everybody else for being here. So thank you. And thank you, Jace, for talking.